The sun had barely risen over the wide Texas plains when Samuel Carter rode into the small town. The streets were still quiet, except for a few shopkeepers opening their doors and sweeping the dust from their porches. Samuel wore a brown hat, pulled low over his eyes, and a leather coat that carried the marks of long travels. His boots were worn, his horse was tired, but there was a quiet strength in the way he sat in the saddle. He was a cowboy, not just by work but by heart. He had been riding for days, crossing open fields and dry lands with nothing but the sound of the wind. Samuel was a man who didn't talk much, but people noticed him wherever he went. His calm nature, the way he looked at things, as if he could see more than others, made people curious. But he didn't come to town to be noticed. He came for a new horse. The town was small, but on market days it came alive. Traders from different places brought their goods, fruits, tools, boots, and sometimes even animals. Samuel had heard there was a special horse for sale that week. Some people called it a great chance. Others said it was a waste of money. But everyone seemed to have an opinion about it. He tied his horse outside a small cafe, gave it a gentle pat on the neck, and walked toward the market square. The sound of people talking and calling out prices grew louder. He could smell freshly baked bread from a nearby stall, but his attention went to a group of people standing near a wooden pen. Something was happening there. As Samuel got closer, he saw a tall man wearing a black vest and a big smile. That was the horse dealer. He was good at talking, the kind of man who could make anything sound like the best thing in the world. Inside the pen stood a chestnut mare. Her coat was a beautiful shade of reddish-brown, though it was dusty and dull from poor care. Her mane was tangled. Her big dark eyes looked around, not with peace but with fear and confusion. She didn't trust anyone. "Here she is, folks," the dealer shouted. "The fastest, strongest mare in the county. Money back if she doesn't satisfy you." The crowd laughed. They had heard this before. Some had even seen this very horse throw riders to the ground. She was known as the horse that couldn't be tamed. People said she had a wild heart and a sharp mind. She didn't let anyone get close, but Samuel didn't laugh. He stepped closer quietly, his eyes fixed on the mare. He didn't see a problem. He saw pain. He saw a creature that had been misunderstood. The mare snorted and kicked the ground. Her ears twitched as she looked around nervously. The dealer noticed Samuel. "You, Cowboy," he said, smiling wide. "Want to try your luck? She's a beauty, strong as a storm, gentle when she wants to be. Money back if she doesn't satisfy you." People in the crowd chuckled again. A man whispered, "Another fool's about to lose his money." But Samuel didn't care what anyone said. He walked slowly to the pen, not making any sudden moves. The mare watched him carefully. Most people walked too fast or too loud. Samuel didn't. He just stood there, hands relaxed by his side. The mare sniffed the air, her eyes locked on him. Something changed in that small moment. It wasn't big or loud, but it was real. Samuel could feel it. It was as if the mare was trying to say, "I've been hurt before. Don't trick me." And Samuel, in his silent way, was saying, "I won't." The dealer leaned closer. "She's yours for a fair price, but I'll warn you, every rider has failed. She doesn't trust anyone. But you look like a brave man. So what do you say?" Samuel didn't even ask the price. He reached into his coat and pulled out a leather pouch. It was everything he had saved from months of hard work, rounding cattle, fixing fences, working under the hot sun. He dropped the pouch into the dealer's hand without a word. The crowd gasped. "He's really doing it," someone said. "That's the cowboy's whole savings." The dealer laughed, pleased. He opened the pen and handed Samuel the rope tied to the mare's halter. "She's yours now." "Good luck, friend. You'll need it." Samuel didn't pull the rope. He didn't force her. He just stood still. The mare lifted her head high, her ears turning toward every sound. For a moment it looked like she might bolt. But then she took a small step forward. One step. Quiet and careful. Samuel whispered something soft. Nobody could hear what he said, but the mare seemed to understand. She didn't come all the way to him, but she didn't pull away either. It was the beginning of something fragile, something real. The people around started to walk away, shaking their heads. "He'll be back tomorrow for his money," someone said. Nobody can handle that horse. But Samuel wasn't thinking about what others believed. He was thinking about what the mare felt. She had lived with people who only shouted and pulled. She didn't trust hands anymore, but maybe, just maybe, she could learn to trust his. He led her gently through the market. At first she hesitated. Her hooves made soft sounds on the dusty road. A few dogs barked in the distance, making her jump a little. Samuel didn't get angry. He just waited. Step by step, she followed him out of the busy street. They reached a quiet field behind the town. There was nothing but grass, a few trees, and the sound of the wind. Samuel stopped, turned around slowly, and looked at her. She was still tense. Her muscles were tight. She looked ready to run at any second. But she didn't. Samuel dropped the rope to the ground. That surprised her. Nobody had ever done that before. Usually people pulled or tied her. But Samuel didn't. He stepped back a little, giving her space. She blinked, unsure. The wind moved through her mane. He didn't need to say anything. His silence was gentle. He knelt down and started gathering grass with his hands, slowly, calmly. The mare lowered her head too, curious but careful. She didn't walk to him. Not yet. But she didn't walk away either. In that field, under the soft sunlight, Samuel and the mare stood in quiet understanding. No shouting. No forcing. Just patience. And patience was something Samuel had more of than most people. He spent the rest of the day near her, not trying to ride her, not even putting a saddle on her back. He let her get used to his smell, his movement, his presence. Every time she took a small step toward him, he stayed still, letting her feel safe. By sunset, when the sky turned orange and gold, she was standing just a few feet away. Her eyes still held a bit of fear, but there was something new there too. Trust, even if it was small. Samuel smiled for the first time that day. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but he wasn't looking for easy. He was looking for real, and real bonds take time. As he walked her back to the small stable he had rented at the edge of town, the shopkeeper nearby nodded quietly. She had seen many men come and go, all trying to prove their strength. But this cowboy was different. He wasn't trying to prove anything. He was trying to listen. The night settled over the town. Crickets sang in the dark. Samuel leaned against the stable wall, looking at the mare inside. She was lying down, still a little restless but calmer than before. Somewhere deep inside, she must have felt that this man wasn't like the others. He wasn't going to break her. He was going to give her a chance. And somewhere inside Samuel's quiet heart, he felt something too, that this was not just a horse he had bought. This was a story waiting to be written, a bond waiting to be built. The next day would bring its own tests, its own lessons. But for now, under the Texas stars, a cowboy and a chestnut mare shared their first night of silent trust. The sun rose slowly over the fields the next morning, painting the sky in soft pink and gold. A light breeze moved through the grass, carrying the smell of fresh earth. Samuel Carter was already awake, standing outside the stable. His hat shaded his eyes, but a quiet smile touched his face. Inside, the chestnut mare lifted her head at the sound of his boots on the ground. She had spent the night in calm silence. There had been no shouting, no rough hands, no loud noise, just quiet breathing, the sound of crickets, and the gentle beating of her own heart. When she saw Samuel again, her ears twitched, not in fear but in attention. She remembered him. Samuel opened the gate slowly, speaking softly as he stepped in. His voice was low and steady, like the sound of water flowing over stones. The mare didn't move away. She stayed where she was, watching him with wide eyes. He didn't rush toward her. He gave her time to decide for herself. A few minutes later, she walked toward him. Not fast, not slow, just steady steps. Samuel stood still, his hands relaxed by his side. When she reached him, she lowered her head slightly. That was the moment he had been waiting for. Trust was like a fragile bird, and it couldn't be forced. It had to land on its own. For the next several days, Samuel spent every morning with her. He brushed her coat gently, untangling the knots in her mane. Each touch was soft, each word was calm. The mare began to relax around him. She no longer jumped at every sound. She started to understand that his hands only brought kindness. When the time came to put a saddle on her back, Samuel moved slowly. He didn't throw it on like other riders had done. He showed it to her first, let her smell it, let her feel it with her nose. Then carefully he placed it on her back. She stiffened at first, her muscles tight, but he didn't tighten the straps right away. He waited. He whispered soft words. She breathed out slowly, and the fear in her eyes melted away a little more. By the end of the week, Samuel had built a small bond with the mare. He didn't see her as a tool or a prize. To him, she was a living soul with a story. She had been treated like a problem by many people before. But with Samuel, she was learning something new. peace. One quiet evening, as the sun dipped low in the sky, Samuel decided it was time to try riding her. He led her to the open field behind town, the same place where they had first met. The air smelled like warm grass, and the sound of birds settling for the night filled the silence. He placed his hand on the saddle, not climbing up yet, just letting her see what was coming. She stood still, ears turned toward him. Then, with slow movements, Samuel lifted himself into the saddle. For a moment, the mare froze. Her breathing grew fast, but Samuel stayed calm. He didn't pull the reins or kick his boots. He simply sat there, letting her feel his weight, letting her know he was still the same man who had shown her kindness. She blinked, then took one small step forward. The ground crunched softly under her hooves. Another step followed, then another. Samuel's heart lifted. She wasn't fighting him. She was accepting him. The field opened wide before them like a promise. Samuel touched her neck lightly and whispered, "Let's go." She understood. She began to walk, then trot, and finally, she ran. The wind rushed past Samuel's face as they moved together across the open land. Her mane flew back, shining in the last light of the setting sun. For the first time in a long time, the mare wasn't running away from something. She was running with someone. Samuel didn't try to control every move. He let her lead, let her feel free. Their breaths fell into rhythm. The ground under them felt alive, the sky above wide and endless. He had ridden many horses before, but none had ever felt like this. It wasn't just riding, it was a bond. When they finally slowed down, both were breathing hard but not tired. Samuel leaned forward and patted her gently on the neck. "Good girl," he whispered. She lifted her head proudly, her ears forward, her eyes bright. The wildness in her was still there, but now it had a partner, not a master. Over the next few weeks, Samuel and the mare became a familiar sight in town. Every morning they rode through the fields. People who had once laughed at him now watched in quiet amazement. The same mare that had thrown every rider before now walked beside Samuel like she had been his all along. Children followed them to the edge of town, their faces full of wonder. Old ranchers nodded with respect. Even the horse dealer who had sold her couldn't believe it. He shook his head every time he saw them, half proud, half speechless. Samuel gave the mare a new name, Faith. It wasn't a name chosen by chance. It was the word that described everything between them. She had learned to trust him, and he had believed in her when no one else did. Soon Samuel started taking her on real rides, long journeys across rivers and through hills. She was strong, fast, and clever. She didn't just follow commands. She understood him. Sometimes it felt like she could sense what he wanted before he even touched the reins. One day, a big cattle drive came through town. The ranchers were short a rider, and the trail was tough. Steep hills, thick mud, and a fast-moving river that could make horses hesitate. Samuel offered to help. Some men raised their eyebrows. They remembered Faith as the untamable one. But when they saw the calm look in her eyes, they stepped aside. Out on the trail, Faith moved like a windstorm with purpose. She didn't stumble. She didn't fear the rushing river, and when the cattle scattered, she helped guide them back with a speed no one expected. Samuel didn't shout or pull. He just trusted her, and she trusted him right back. When they returned at sunset, dusty but proud, the other riders clapped Samuel on the back. "That mare," one of them said with wide eyes, "is something else." Samuel just smiled. He knew she had always been something else. She only needed someone to see it. From that day on, Faith was no longer the horse people whispered about. She became the horse people admired. Samuel never asked for the dealer's money back. He had gained something far more valuable than coins in a pouch. Sometimes at night, Samuel would sit outside the stable, watching Faith sleep under the stars. The wind would carry the soft sound of crickets, and the world felt right. Faith had found a home, and so had he. Years later, people would still tell the story of the cowboy who bought a horse everyone else had given up on. They spoke of how he didn't use loud hands or hard words, how he waited, how he listened, and how that made all the difference. It wasn't just a story about a horse and a man. It was a story about trust, kindness, and believing in what others can't see. Faith never became a racehorse or a prize winner in a big event. But to Samuel, she was more than that. She was proof that patience and respect could change everything. Every morning, as the sun rose over the Texas plains, Samuel and Faith could be seen riding together. The people of the town would pause and watch them, a man and a mare side by side, moving like one heartbeat. And though Samuel never talked much, his quiet bond with Faith spoke louder than any words ever could.